discussed in the video in regards to sex, sexuality, and sexual expression in the 18th century, where all these things were less mandated and controlled because there was a movement away from the church and a movement towards the individual and the family. People were free to express themselves in their sexual activities, such as, experimenting with orgies, sex toys, multiple partners, you name it, they did it. There's also movement towards romantic love and movement away from objectifying women for their bodies. Casanova really exemplified these ideals in his works and his beliefs. He believed that pleasure and pleasure-seeking were, just normal things and things that should not be ashamed. He eventually became an assistant husband to a very prominent social woman, and his 12-volume work is basically an autobiography of all his sexcapades. So there's Casanova for you. Well, what about the colonies? Well, the colonies had a very different practice from sex than what they taught. There was not a lot of shame around women, around sex, considering that women were in short supply and animals were not. This led to a variety of sexual behaviors such as, accounts of lesbianism, bestiality, familial incest. Sex was understood to be a part of life, and like I said, there wasn't a lot of shame considering the circumstances. If a colonial couple conceived out of wedlock, they weren't socially ostracized for it, they were just expected to get married. So casual sex was around, but it wasn't so casual. The video described the Victorian era as being a period that, a quote from the movie, upheld ideals of romantic love within a tiny Protestant context. Sex was allowed, but it was only allowed for purposes of procreation. Consequently, medical professional opinion was in consensus that too much sex could be harmful. This called for the invention of, various contraptions that would keep people from masturbating or seeking pleasure or, just things. Sex was done to procreate, not for pleasure. Also out of the Victoria area came our modern day stereotypes we have regarding femininity and masculinity. Women are expected to stay home and do domestic work and care for the children and be delicate, while men are supposed to go out into the world and be the breadwinners. What I found most surprising and shocking was that the beginning of the video, when it's telling the story about how Versailles used to be the center, the cultural hub for sexual excessiveness, where dozens of drunken orgies took place, and also how this area was characterized as the golden era for pornography, and all this time bestiality, S&M, and orgies, and oral sex are brought out of the bedroom, so to speak, and into the light of, the public eye. I was surprised to learn all this because I had always imagined this era as being sexually repressive and sex is considered taboo and it was all hush-hush, but evidently not. Alright, have a good one. That's my blog.